everybody, and welcome back to It's All Football as we get ready to bring you all the action from Matchday 8 of the Premier League. This is going to be the last match day before another international break. I know we only had one a few weeks ago, but it is time for one again. So, for those of you that have gotten invested into supporting a club, this is the time where you start sweating after this week's matches, of course, as the players go off on international duty. So, looking ahead to some of our fixtures, we start early Saturday morning in Luton Town as they welcome Tottenham Hotspur, who sit in second place right now, to Kenilworth Road. Now, Tottenham obviously have started the season very well and last week managed to get a huge victory over Liverpool, albeit in controversial circumstances. Now they have to travel to Luton, who did pick up their first win of the season in Matchday 7, although they did then lose to Burnley in the rescheduled Matchday 2 fixture afterwards. Burnley, fresh off the back of that win, welcome Chelsea to town, who are perhaps experiencing a slight upswing in form, shall we say. Everton will be determined to turn around their disastrous home form so far as they host Bournemouth, who suffered a heavy defeat themselves to Arsenal last week. Fulham host Sheffield United. Both teams need to start getting results to get their season back on track, although arguably Sheffield United needed much more as they sit in last place in the league right now with a single point. Manchester United, who have had a little bit of a tricky week again, welcome Brentford to town, who haven't had the easiest time of it themselves, but always pose a tough challenge. Our other fixtures from Matchday 8 Saturday culminates with Crystal Palace welcoming Nottingham Forest. Forest managed to steal a point at home to Brentford last week, and Palace themselves obviously haven't been in the best run of form, but they are generally very, very good at home, and they will be looking to get a result there. Sunday sees some of our huge, huge fixtures. We start on Sunday with Brighton hosting Liverpool. And this is going to be a very, very important clash because these two sides gave us exciting fixtures last season. Brighton always played good football. Liverpool look to have come back after their disappointing season last year, and they look to be a huge force indeed again. Another big fixture is West Ham United hosting Newcastle. Both teams had European fixtures in midweek with success, and both teams are enjoying a good start now overall to the season. Wolves then host Aston Villa in a game that has ramifications at both ends of the table. Wolves are languishing a little bit towards the lower end, while Aston Villa are enjoying a healthy position in the top half right now and will be looking to improve upon that, especially after they beat Brighton 6-1 last week. And then the final match of Matchday 8 before the players go off on international duty is Arsenal hosting Manchester City. And this one, especially based on last season, is gigantic, especially for Arsenal. Just a reminder as to how the table looks at the moment with 7 games played for all teams. Manchester City do currently lead the league with Tottenham and Arsenal 1 point behind them, Liverpool 1 point behind those two, and then Aston Villa and Brighton bringing up 5th and 6th. West Ham and Newcastle are not far behind, closely followed by Crystal Palace, while Manchester United now sit in 10th. Again, lots of interesting fixtures here in the top half, especially as we're going to see third against first, sixth against fourth, and seventh against eighth, all in this match day. So huge, huge potential changes happening to the top half of the table based on this weekend's results. Bottom half, Chelsea are very close to breaking into the top half right now, sitting in 11th. Forest and Fulham also obviously have that chance if they get their decent results this weekend, and some teams in the top half fall away a little bit, especially notably perhaps Manchester United or Crystal Palace. Brentford again will be looking to get a win against United to try and propel themselves into the top half, and Wolves will need a result against Aston Villa, who sit in the top six as well. And no easy feat at all, even though Wolves are at home and they did beat Manchester City last week. So that should give them huge confidence going into this game. And we'll see if that's enough to get them back-to-back wins. Everton, obviously, hosting Bournemouth, who are currently sitting in 19th. Everton themselves didn't have a good result last week when they lost at home to Luton, who sit right below them. Uh, but Everton will be hopeful that they can turn it around this week. Luton Town, obviously, very difficult for them as they host Tottenham, who sit in second right now. It's very difficult to see how Luton get a result out of that, but stranger things have happened. Burnley, of course, picked up their first win at Luton on Tuesday and now face a very tough opponent in Chelsea, and they will have to fight hard if they want to get anything out of that game. Sheffield United, as we talked about already, face 13th placed Fulham and desperately need to start getting points on the board. So, obviously, our first featured match of this week that we suggest you tune into is the very last match of the weekend. Sunday sees Arsenal against Manchester City. Last season, this was second place versus first place, but there's additional fuel to the fire, obviously, because Arsenal led the league for nearly 250 days, but eventually succumbed to injuries, poor form, and just perhaps loss of confidence towards the end. And Manchester City ended up overtaking them to the title right in the final few weeks. Arsenal will be looking for revenge, and they will be looking to get this bit of a mental block out of their system when it comes to facing City. Our second match that we suggest you tune in for, if you're able to, is also on Sunday, Brighton against Liverpool. These two fixtures between these two sides were incredible last season. When Liverpool hosted Brighton, the game finished in a 3-3 draw, with actually all of Brighton's goals being scored by Leandro Trossard, who has since moved to Arsenal. So, although Brighton have developed their team and moved on quite well without him. They have had a few inconsistent results in recent games, and uh, we'll see whether they can turn their form back around as they welcome Liverpool. Liverpool, of course, themselves have been in excellent form so far, aside from that controversial defeat to Tottenham last week. They've basically just had wins on the board aside from that result, and they will be furious and anxious to get back to winning ways. This is going to be a very exciting match to witness. And we're actually going to recommend that there is a third big match you may want to tune into for this week if you have the time, obviously, and the screens available. Because at the same time as Brighton versus Liverpool, we are also going to see West Ham versus Newcastle. Given the start that both teams have made, this is uh, this is going to be an electric match between these two sides. It's seventh place versus eighth place, but both these sides were sitting in the top three or four spots for the first couple of weeks and will be hoping to get a win to get themselves back up there. So, what are the big narratives to look for as we head into Matchday 8? Well, first of all, like we've said, Arsenal against City actually has a little bit of, for you Star Wars fans out there, Master versus Apprentice going on. Pep Guardiola, the Manchester City manager, at one time had Arsenal manager right now, Mikel Arteta, as his assistant coach at Man City. When the Arsenal job opened up, Guardiola actually encouraged Arteta to go ahead and take the job despite being a very young manager. Guardiola felt Arteta was ready, and so far, it's hard to argue against that decision because Arteta has turned Arsenal around. The one thing that Arteta has not managed to do yet in his time at Arsenal is actually get the better of Pep Guardiola in the league. He has beaten Guardiola's Manchester City in the FA Cup, and he did win the Community Shield against City as well back in August. So hopefully, from an Arsenal perspective, hopefully Arteta will be able to get the right game plan this time because Arsenal's current record against City is 12 defeats in the last 12 meetings between the two sides. I think if Arsenal have any serious hope of trying to overtake Man City to the title, they do need to start beating City in the league. And there's no better time to kick that off than this weekend, given that Man City have a couple of very key players in their midfield out due to either injury or suspension, with Kevin De Bruyne out with injury at the moment and key midfielder Rodri currently serving or about to serve the third of his 3-match suspension for a red card he received a few weeks ago. Like we mentioned already, Liverpool and Brighton have served up great matches in the past year. At Liverpool, the game finished 3-3, but when the return fixtures played at Brighton, Brighton actually comfortably won that last season 3-0. Very surprising at the time, but Liverpool did have a little bit of an inconsistent season. Um, I, for one, am super excited to see what sort of match we get this time between the two. I get the feeling it's going to be very even, and at the moment, I would say probably Liverpool look a little stronger. And then a nice story in English football is that we are seeing two English managers who are succeeding very well with their sides. David Moyes with West Ham has got them nicely in the top half, and he's actually helped West Ham break a record and set a record for all English teams right now. They had a European fixture in the middle of the week and they won, which took them to 17 unbeaten matches in a row in European competitions, which is actually now a record for any English club. So even your powerhouses traditionally in England, such as Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City recently, even they have not yet equaled this record for games unbeaten. And David Moyes, West Ham manager, deserves a lot of credit for this. Newcastle manager Eddie Howe has brought his side into the Champions League for the first time in 20 years. The Champions League is the elite tier of European competition, and actually he did manage to mastermind Newcastle getting a 4-1 victory against the reigning champions of France, PSG. For those of you that may know, a certain Kylian Mbappe, one of the best players in the world at the moment, plays for PSG and was kept quiet by Eddie Howe's Newcastle in the middle of the week. So these are two very good coaches who perhaps don't always get the credit they deserve, going head to head, and this is going to be an entertaining fixture to see on Sunday. Manchester United's concerns continue at the moment because after their home defeat last week to Crystal Palace, they then played at home in the Champions League against Turkish side Galatasaray and actually ended up getting beaten there as well, 3-2. New signing Sofyan Amrabat, who is just pictured there in the Manchester United kit, is one of the new signings recently brought in. But due to all the injuries that United have at the moment, Amrabat is being asked to cover those positions rather than being able to play his preferred position in midfield. That's not his fault, obviously, and he's not to blame necessarily for United's defeats, but United will need to turn things around, and Brentford is not an easy opponent to do that against. But if they do plan it right and their squad gets their mentality right going into it, they should be able to win it. And finally, Burnley. Burnley obviously have just come off the back of their first win of the season, which, although it's taken perhaps a little longer than some fans would have expected, they are finally on the board in the win column, and they will be looking to build on it now. There are only a couple of sides left that have not yet won this season, and they sit below Burnley. So Burnley need to now start trying to build momentum, and that means even though they face a tough opponent in Chelsea, they need to try and really go for it, especially given that Burnley's at home, and they need to see if they can pull off the win here. So, what do we think is going to happen in these games? Well, obviously injuries, form, and quality all come into play, and unfortunately, I think Spurs do have a little bit too much quality for Luton. So I'm going to say that that game is going to finish fairly comfortably as 3-0 to Tottenham. Burnley and Chelsea again is tricky to call because of Burnley's recent result, but I do think Chelsea are slowly starting to get into form, and their win against Fulham saw a first goal for the Blues for Mikhailo Mudryk, the Ukrainian signing that joined the club in January. He may obviously kick on in form. Either way, I think Chelsea come out winning this game 3-1. Everton and Bournemouth is a little difficult because Everton's home form has not been good so far this season, but Bournemouth will also be keen to fix up their form, especially given their last result. In the end, I do think that the two teams are going to kind of come to blows and cancel each other out, and I'm going to predict a 1-1 draw between them. Although Fulham and Sheffield United have both been quite poor this season overall, I do think that Fulham generally just has that little bit more quality, and they have the experience of being in the league already from last season. I do think that they have enough in them here, even given their problems and their inconsistencies. I think that they have enough to eke out a win, and I'm going to go 2-1 to Fulham. Manchester United and Brentford again. I've predicted United to keep fixing their form in the past, and I feel like at some point it is going to happen. They clearly have the quality in terms of the players they have in their squad, and Brentford have been struggling a little bit. They've got injuries to key players, suspensions going on, and in this case, I do think that United are going to come out of this match victorious, and I'm going to say the result is going to be 2-0 to Manchester United. Palace and Forest is also quite unpredictable, given the kind of up and down form of both sides. But I think in this one, Forest is actually a little bit stronger with current momentum. Even though Palace did beat Manchester United, I think Forest generally have a little bit more depth within their squad, which means that if their first 11 uh, doesn't get enough to break Palace down, they do have more options available. So I'm going to say Forest wins this one. Brighton and Liverpool is going to be a fun contest, and I think it will be close initially, but eventually Liverpool just do have too much talent and they have the depth in their squad. And I think they will end up finding ways to get past Brighton more than the other way around. So while I do feel like Brighton will find the net, I think Liverpool are going to win this 3-1. With West Ham and Newcastle, I think Newcastle aren't necessarily used to playing European fixtures against top opposition, and it could cause a little bit of tiredness in their squad. That being said, they do still have a little more quality overall, I think, in their team, and I'm going to predict that they win this game 2-1. Wolves and Villa. Now, Wolves obviously are a strange team right now because their overall set of results in the league so far has not been amazing, but they became the first side to beat Manchester City this season, the current 3 time in a row champions. So I don't know. I think they will get a goal, but I think Villa overall are a stronger and a more cohesive team. Uh, and obviously, the fact that Villa were able to tear apart Brighton, who's another very good side, and put 6 goals past them last week suggests that they could probably do that to most teams in the league right now. And so I think Villa is going to end up coming out on top in this match, 3-1. As an Arsenal fan, I would love, absolutely love it if we can finally get the better of Manchester City in a fixture in the league. As nice as it was to win the Community Shield and to beat them in the FA Cup a few years ago, our league form against them has been really, really poor. Um, Unfortunately, I think Arsenal are also struggling at the moment with a couple of injuries to key players, and I just think Manchester City have the talent to exploit those exact gaps. I think City is going to come away with the win, much as I would hope from a fan perspective that that doesn't happen. I think City is going to win this 3-1. That is where we're going to leave you for today. If you are in the West, in North America at all, then there are now less than 12 hours until the game kicks off. If you are in Europe, you will be asleep at the time that we're recording this, but maybe by the time you watch it, it'll only be a few hours to go until the matches kick off, starting with Luton against Tottenham. So wherever you are in the world, obviously, whether you are in North America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, hopefully we're getting you watching from all over Europe. But we hope that you like this video. Please like it, subscribe to the channel, please, and share with anyone else who you feel might be interested. Remember, we're all about trying to keep you up to date on football and provide a spot where you can get all your updates and perhaps educate a few people who are new to the game a little along the way as we go. But take care, everyone. See you soon. And remember, it's called football.